spent in a miserable way.
U.S. News Opinion: The Medicare for All trap. The New York Times. Most issues will strongly favor the Democrats in 2020. Taking away opinion columnist. This article is part of David Leonhardt's newsletter. He came to receive a couple of weeks ago. One of the country's most respected healthcare pollsters, Kaiser Family Foundation, conducted a survey on Medicare for All, and looked great for some 56% of respondents said they favored a national plan called Medicare for All, in which all Americans would get their insurance through a single government plan. A large majority, the polls detailed, however, were a lot of less positive about Medicare for All. In fact, when Kaiser pollsters were putting together their survey, they understood that not all Americans thought of Medicare for All as meaning the same thing. So the poll asked, not only that, but when the pollsters described a version of Medicare for All in which private insurance was wiped away, support plummeted. The idea flipped. This same hostility to change helped sink Bill and Hillary Clinton's health care plan in the 1990s. It also became, I understand the arguments in favor of mandatory Medicare for All. It could reduce Europe, but I think this particular plan is an unforced error. It comes with huge. The next Democratic president will need to prioritize among several big issues. I'd much prefer elsewhere. Watch Harris explain her position during CNN's check of the Washington Examiner tweeted Gallup poll finds that 70% of those with private insurance rate their coverage as excellent or good. 85% Democrats will have to navigate a tricky gap between what voters think of when they hear Medicare for All, and what politicians mean when they say it, a BuzzFeed News wrote, in a reported piece from Nebraska last year. Pressed on the detail, in Jacobin, recently offered a more favorable view of mandatory Medicare, arguing that the transition will be as disruptive as some Americans view. It will certainly favor a Vox have list the various versions of Medicare for All, as well as other Democratic health care plans. Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand and Julian Castro, you three other presidential candidates who also support the Sanders version of Medicare for All that Harris backs. But they have generally, my view is that the best answer is a version of I am for Medicare for All. If you want Medicare, the Axe Files. Newsletter readers know that I am a fan of David Axelrod's podcast, The Axe Files, in which he asks guests to tell their life stories and eventually wends around to current events. I sat down with Axe. If you are not a subscriber to this newsletter, you can. We can also follow the New York Times opinion section on, and
raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. I keep fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,